Okay, we're continuing in the Maimar Bati Lagani. Bati Lagani, which is one of the Maimurim of it was the last Maimar to be published out, to be put out by the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe really had said this Mamar years earlier. I think in 1929, something like that. He said this Maimar. And now it would be for the day of his passing away, let us say that he didn't know he was going to pass away on that day, but he gave it out to be said. It's 20 paragraphs. Now, what is this idea about Maimar? Just a very short. Maimar is a revelation of godliness into the world. God is not so, incomprehensible as we think. On one hand, he's infinitely more incomprehensible. In other words, to say that God, you might think he was comprehensible, doesn't make any sense, because God is infinite. On the other hand, God is very complex, and one of the aspects of his complexity is the world and the Torah and the Jewish people. All these things are very complex. And maybe the whole thing all fits together with what's called avodah, work. The Jewish people were put into this world by God in order to change the world, to improve the world. That's called avodah, work. Work also means to change. How do you change? According to what principles do you change the world? And you have to change yourself, and you have to use, that's the ideas of Hasidut. It teaches you what our goal is. It teaches you what the world is about. Every letter of the Torah, every word of the Torah. You have to be inspired. You have to be happy. You have to be positive in order to have this monumental job. That's what continuing the work that Adam had, the first man. The Torah tells us that man was put into the world, la'avda u'leshomra. He was put into the world that the world at that time was like the level of heaven. It was Gan Eden. And he was put in the world in order to fix the world even more. That's the job of man, to work. Ani lo nivresi elo l'shamesh koni, or ani nivresi l'shamesh koni. I was created only to serve the creator of the universe. So, of course, it takes a little bit of faith to feel that there is a creator of the universe, but every Jew feels that inside, every Jew without exception. This is a very basic principle of the creation of the world, that there's a thing called the Jewish people, and they feel that there's a creator, and they feel that we have a responsibility to improve the world. This is a real game, and people spend their whole lives. I've seen people and video games. Video games are very, very interesting. Video games, right? So a video game, which is a pretty stupid thing. I mean, when it comes right down to it, it's just a bunch of pictures and colors and figures that all of a sudden you start to, because it looks like a man, so you feel it's a man, and it looks like a bullet, so it's a bullet. You get really interested in it, and then they have international competitions.
You're moving a bunch of pixels around the screen.
Right. So, and people get interested in games, which is okay. You want to get interested, or in sports. All right, you want to get interested. But here, this is a real game. This is not something which is smaller than us or created by us. This is part that we are serving the Creator who creates us. And we have a thing called free will. And this free will is an amazing, incomprehensible gift that we have. We can choose. And if we use, that's the whole thing. How do we use our free will? And there's real life things going on here. All the novels and movies and things are written about what choices people make, and people are in different situations, difficult situations, how they get out of it and how they solve it. So this is real. It's real. God really created the world. He creates the world. He really cares about us, and he wants us to serve him, to do work. But we have to understand what is the purpose and how to achieve this purpose. That's the idea of Hasidut Chabad. Every Rebbe of Chabad, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said it, every Rebbe of Chabad is the Mashiach of his generation. He's the leader to show what his generation is supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. Okay, so here we started off. The Rebbe starts off with this general explanation of this thing called avodah, serving God. When God created the world, there was man in it. God's presence, so to speak, was here. God was pleased with the world. That lasted like 5 hours, something like that. And Adam ate from the tree. Adam ate from the tree. He brought the world down. Well, let's say he brought the world down. He drove God away. It's something like a person who steals. Right? He steals. When he steals, I remember. I'll admit my sins now to everybody in them. When I was in elementary school.
Should I stop the tape?
No. When I was in elementary school, so I had bad friends. I had these really bad friends, really rasty guys, friends. And so they used to steal. They used to brag about how they used to steal from this this dime store. That was around. It was called Franklin's Dime Store or something like that. If the owner of it or his son knows that he can call me up, I'll repay him. Anyway, so I decided, I'm no less than them. So I developed this whole methods of how I would, take things and I would look at them and I would shoot them up my sleeve. And I even made, I stole like playing cards and chips and things like that. I sort of was into card playing and candies. I mean, it came out in the end, I stole like a grand total of like $130 worth of stuff, which is not a small amount, actually, especially we're talking about 1950, whatever it was. And eventually, the first time I did it, I sort of felt bad. And then after that, I didn't feel so bad. And then after that, I started getting good at it. It just became this big challenge, to do it. And then one day, it was like the next grade. This was like it was in 7th grade, maybe. 8th grade, I felt really bad about it. I thought, man, what did I do that for? And I wrote it all down, what I took. And I really didn't need the things. So I got money together, and I had all the values of everything, because I went back to the store, and the store was closed. It was a different thing. It was like a delicatessen or something. So the owner was gone. I feel bad about it to this very day. I really thought, man, what did I steal? I didn't need that stuff. Not only that, I stole it. You can't steal. And so I went back, but the process that I went through was one of, first you feel bad, and then you don't feel so bad, and then you feel a little bit less bad, and then you feel sort of good, and then you feel even better, and then you feel even better. It's something like this idea that the Shekhinah goes away. Your conscience, your feeling of absolute right and wrong just sort of departs from you. And that's what happened. When Adam sinned with the tree of knowledge, so his conscience, if you want to put it in subjective terms, went away. In objective terms, God, so to speak, cared less about the world. He cared less about the world. He said, listen, if I'm here, it's going to be tragedy. I'm going to destroy the whole place. I'll move next door. And then when the next generation sinned and Cain killed Hevel, so God said, you know what, I'll move 2 houses away. I'll depart more and more and more and more. Until finally got to the generation, the flood of generation, until finally, right before Abraham's generation, everyone was worshiping idols. Everyone was doing pretty much whatever they wanted to. Abraham came along and he said, I've got to reverse the process. First of all, he realized that there's a process. He realized that there's God, and he realized that there's things that God wanted, and he was against the whole world. No one in the whole world agreed with him. That's why his name was Avram HaIvri. HaIvri means Hebrew, means on the other side. It says that in the Midrash, the whole world was on this side, and he was on the other side. He was against everybody. Which has pretty much been that way in the history of the Jewish people. The Jewish people, we just finished the holiday of Hanukkah, and where all the Jews sided with the Greeks. So to be part of the world, everybody likes it, everybody wants it. No one wants to defy everybody or to have everybody defy them. But that's what Abraham did. He was the first, and so it went on with generations after generations. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Until finally came Moses. And Moses gradually brought the Shekhinah, God's presence, God's interest back to the world. Until finally got to Moses. Moses revealed it in the Holy Temple. And even more important, Moses revealed the Shekhinah, God's presence, in each and every one of us.
Those are the books that were on this table. Those are the books that were on this table. Maybe that's what he's looking for? Those books were...
No. He's looking for something else. תחפש, אני לא יודע. יכול להזיז את הכל. יש שיחות, כן, תשאר בשיחות כאן.